What happens when a black woman who signs $900 million contracts is treated like an intruder in the very seat she paid for? The morning sun had just begun to wash the tarmac in gold as Selena Brooks stepped onto the jet bridge. The cabin smelled faintly of leather and fresh coffee, a promise of comfort that first class was supposed to provide. Passengers were already settling into their wide seats, murmurs of small talk filling the air like a low hum. Selena moved with quiet confidence, her dark green blazer sharp against her skin, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Every motion of hers was deliberate. She was not here for spectacle. She was here for peace, a simple flight before a contract signing that would shift the future of an entire airline. But peace never lasts long when prejudice decides otherwise. As she slid into seat 1A, arranging her bag neatly under the chair, a flight attendant froze. Her eyes flicked to the boarding pass in Selena's hand, then back to her face. Something ugly passed across her expression, disbelief, disdain. "Excuse me," the attendant said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the cabin. "This seat is reserved. You'll need to move." Conversations paused. A businessman in 1C smirked, his newspaper folding like the curtain on a play about to begin. Phones angled discreetly, recording without consent. Selena held up her boarding pass, her tone steady. 1A, first class. Paid in full. The attendant didn't even glance at the ticket. "I said move, don't make this difficult." A ripple of whispers filled the air. Some passengers leaned closer, hungry for drama. Others avoided eye contact, unwilling to intervene. The smirking man chuckled, muttering, "Knew it was too good to be true." Selena's jaw tightened. "I'm in my seat. If you'd like to check, I'll wait." That's when the captain appeared, called by the murmurs. His gaze swept the cabin, then landed on her. Not neutral, not professional. Cold. "Ma'am, security will escort you out if you don't comply." Gasps echoed. A woman hissed, "Why doesn't she just move?" Another muttered, entitled. Two security officers entered, uniforms crisp, authority heavy. "Ma'am, please come with us." Selena looked at them, then back at her ticket, the black letters declaring what should have been unquestionable. First class, 1A. She stood. Not because she was wrong, but because she already knew what they didn't. The watch on her wrist ticked toward the time she would sit across from this very airline's board to finalize a $900 million partnership. They thought they were removing a nuisance. In reality, they were escorting out their most powerful ally. Selena Brooks wasn't just another passenger on a morning flight. At 42, she was the architect of Carter Brooks Global, a logistics empire that stitched together continents with the precision of clockwork. Fortune profiled her as the woman who moves the world, and investors whispered her name with reverence. Yet she carried herself with a quiet grace, never demanding attention until prejudice dragged her into a spotlight she hadn't sought. This flight was supposed to be uneventful, a hop from New York to Chicago, just 2 hours to prepare her final notes before stepping into a boardroom where history would be written. The contract awaiting her signature would funnel $900 million in resources and secure the airline's dominance for a decade. She had the pen. They had the need. But in the cabin that morning, no one saw a partner. They saw a target. Selena's life had been a constant study in contrasts. Luxury earned through grit, power wrapped in humility, brilliance too often doubted until proven undeniable. She'd learned to anticipate arrogance, to smile at dismissal, to wield patience like a blade. And yet, humiliation never lost its sting. As she sat alone in the sterile waiting area after being escorted out, phone buzzing with messages from her legal team, a cold clarity settled over her. They hadn't just embarrassed her. They had made a statement. "You don't belong here." What they didn't know was that Selena had built an empire on reclaiming spaces she was told she didn't belong in. Every deal, every signature, every billion-dollar decision had been her way of rewriting the rules. The terminal buzzed with restless energy, travelers dragging rolling bags, announcements droning overhead, yet at gate 14 the world had gone eerily small for Selena Brooks. She sat in the cold plastic chair security had guided her to, posture perfect despite the sting under her skin. The seat they gave her wasn't just a chair, it was a holding cell in plain sight. People walked by and stared, some whispering, some smirking. Phones still hovered, capturing her like an exhibit. The flight attendant from earlier passed by once more, lips pursed in a self-satisfied smirk. "Next time, know where you belong," she muttered under her breath. Selena didn't reply. Words here would be wasted. The blade of her silence was sharper, but her phone buzzed relentlessly. Text after text from her assistant, her legal team, and even a board member already in Chicago. "Everything on schedule? Media sniffing around already. Do we respond? We'll have the room ready at 2 hours and sharp." Selena exhaled slowly, locking her screen. Let them wait. Let the story bloom without her interference. At the counter, a white businessman approached the gate agent, his voice carrying, "Glad you kicked her off. People like that always cause trouble." The agent nodded, chuckling nervously. Yeah, she was making others uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. The word rang in her ears, the same word wielded like a weapon against her since childhood classrooms, college seminars, even corporate boardrooms. A lazy justification for prejudice. Selena's eyes flicked to the clock above the gate, 9:14 a.m. The meeting wasn't until she had time to let them believe they had won. But whispers grew. A young black couple nearby, overhearing the exchange, stared at her with recognition. The man leaned forward cautiously. "Excuse me, are you Selena Brooks? From Carter Brooks Global?" Selena met his gaze evenly. "Yes." The woman's hand flew to her mouth. "My God, you're her." Within minutes, the quiet humiliation twisted into a storm. The couple took photos, tweets flew, hashtags bloomed. Selena Brooks, first class, while black. Screens lit up around the terminal. Passengers scrolled, mouths gaping as they realized the woman in seat 1A wasn't an intruder. She was the keynote speaker, the billion-dollar partner. A security guard returned, flustered. "Ma'am, maybe we can rebook you." Selena stood, her blazer falling into perfect lines, eyes sharp as cut glass. "You've already booked your future, and you can't rebook what's already been lost." She walked past them, heels clicking like a countdown. By the time Selena reached the VIP lounge, the story had already escaped the terminal. Her assistant, Maya, was waiting with wide eyes and a tablet clutched in her hands. "Selena? It's everywhere." She turned the screen to show headlines blooming like wildfire. "Black woman escorted from first-class seat. Know your place," attendant allegedly says. Did airline just lose 900 million term partner? Clips from passenger phones had gone viral. Selena, calm and composed, holding her boarding pass while uniformed guards flanked her like she was a trespasser. Another clip caught the businessman's smirk. His words, "Glad you kicked her off." Comments raged beneath, "She's literally the CEO of Carter Brooks Global. Imagine humiliating the woman signing your biggest contract of the decade." This isn't just racism, it's corporate suicide. Selena set her leather bag on the table, her calm almost eerie. "Let it spread." Maya's voice rose, panicked. "But the board, the executives are scrambling. They're already calling me, asking for reassurance that you'll still sign." Selena adjusted her blazer, every motion deliberate. "Good, let them sweat. Let them understand what humiliation tastes like." Meanwhile, the airline scrambled. A press release appeared online within an hour, mealy-mouthed and defensive. "We regret the misunderstanding that occurred this morning and are reviewing the incident." But the apology only fueled the fire. News anchors dissected the footage. Social media influencers mocked the phrase misunderstanding. Passengers who had been on the flight posted first-hand accounts, confirming the sneers, the whispers, the way she had been paraded down the aisle. In Chicago, executives gathered around a polished mahogany table, their confidence cracking. One of them slammed his palm on the table. "This deal was supposed to secure us for a decade. Now it's unraveling before we even sign." Another muttered, "Call her. Apologize. Throw money at it." But Selena didn't answer their calls. She sat in the lounge, sipping green tea, her phone buzzing incessantly. Every unanswered ring was another reminder. She wasn't the one on trial. They were. Maya leaned closer. "What's the plan?" Selena's eyes gleamed with steel. At 2 a.m. I'll walk into that boardroom. They'll expect desperation. They'll beg. And that's when they'll learn. I don't sign contracts with people who don't recognize my humanity. Maya swallowed, torn between awe and fear. So you're really going to kill the deal? Selena's voice dropped, low and final. I don't cancel deals. I cancel empires that disrespect me. The room went quiet except for the hum of her phone, vibrating with yet another missed call from the airline's PR team. Selena glanced at it once, then turned it face down. By early afternoon, the Chicago skyline glittered under the sun, glass towers glinting like knives. Selena's car pulled up to the airline's headquarters, sleek and silent. Reporters swarmed outside, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. Questions crashed into one another. Miss Brooks, will you still sign? Are you canceling the deal? Do you think the airline is racist? Selena walked past them without a word. Her silence was more powerful than any statement. The footage of her measured stride, chin high, blazer crisp, would later play on evening newsreels across the world. Inside, executives scrambled. The boardroom was a theater of panic. Ties tugged loose, phones buzzing, aides whispering updates from Twitter. The CEO, Richard Halverson, stood at the head of the table, pale and sweating. She'll come. We'll fix this. We have to. But when Selena finally entered, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. The hum of devices faded into silence. Her presence, cool, composed, unreadable, commanded the room more than any gavel could. Halverson forced a smile. Selena, thank God you're here. We're deeply sorry for the incident this morning. Completely unacceptable. The staff involved will be disciplined. Selena set her leather folder on the polished table and remained standing. Disciplined, she repeated, her voice flat. Do you think this is about a single attendant? Murmurs rippled. One board member adjusted his cufflinks nervously. Another scribbled notes she wouldn't use. Halverson spread his hands. We want to make this right. Please, sit. Let's finalize the contract. Selena didn't move. Her eyes swept the room, catching each of theirs in turn. You humiliated me publicly. You escorted me off a plane I paid for. You turned prejudice into policy, and now you want to shake hands as if it never happened? One executive cleared his throat. It was a misunderstanding. Stop. Her voice cut sharp. Man froze. Words like misunderstanding are why this happens again and again. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's arrogant. It's systemic. And it tells me everything I need to know about who I was about to partner with. Halverson's face drained of color. He leaned forward desperately. Selena, please, if you pull out now, the damage will be catastrophic for both of us. Selena tilted her head slightly, calm but unyielding. For you, perhaps. Gasps flickered around the table. Maya, seated quietly in the corner, almost smiled. Selena opened her folder, sliding the unsigned contract across the gleaming wood. Its weight seemed heavier than paper, heavier even than the billions it represented. I came here to decide if this airline was worthy of $900 million in trust. This morning, you answered for me. Halverson's lips parted, but no sound came out. Silence clung to the boardroom like static. The unsigned contract sat in the center of the table, its glossy cover reflecting the nervous faces surrounding it. Selena Brooks rested her hand lightly on the folder, not with hesitation, but with the quiet authority of someone who already knew the outcome. Halverson broke first. His voice wavered, the polish of a practiced executive crumbling. Selena, please. This deal means survival. Our investors are counting on it. Our staff, our shareholders. We can't afford for one incident to derail it. Selena's gaze cut to him, cool and steady. One incident? She leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but sharp enough to make them flinch. Do you think it was just one? Or do you think the humiliation you orchestrated this morning was the first time I've been told I don't belong in a space I paid to enter? The room stilled. No one dared answer. Selena tapped the pen once against the folder, the sound echoing louder than any alarm. Here's what you don't understand. I don't negotiate with people who diminish me. I don't invest in systems that silence me. And I don't put $900 million into the hands of an airline that treats its future partner like baggage. A younger board member shifted uncomfortably. We can fix this. We'll fire the employees, make a donation, put out a full apology. Selena's eyes narrowed. So you'll sacrifice pawns to protect your castle. But the rot is in the foundation, not the staff you'll discard for optics. The words struck harder than any accusation. Several members looked down at their notes, shame written in their silence. Halverson tried again, desperation creeping in. Think of the good we could do together. Jobs, infrastructure, progress. If you walk away, you'll damage more than us. You'll damage the industry. Selena straightened, sliding the pen deliberately across the table. It rolled to a stop near his hand. No, you damaged the industry this morning when you told the world that a black woman with a first-class ticket doesn't belong in first class. You humiliated yourselves. I just happened to be the one holding the mirror. Maya shifted in her chair, eyes gleaming with pride. The executive squirmed, some whispering frantic side comments, others staring at the contract as though sheer will might make her sign it. Selena stood, blazer falling in clean lines, every movement choreographed with intention. When I walk out of this room, it won't just be a canceled deal. It will be a statement your competitors will use against you, a statement your investors will rage about, a statement your passengers will remember every time they choose a different airline. Halverson's face turned ashen. You can't, she cut him off, voice like steel. I already. Selena didn't just walk out of the boardroom, she walked into history. The corridor outside buzzed with reporters, their cameras already primed. Microphones shot forward like spears as she appeared, Maya close behind, folder in hand. Miss Brooks, did you sign the deal? Is the contract canceled? Do you consider the airline racist? Selena didn't rush. She paused, shoulders square, gaze steady, letting the silence build until the entire hallway leaned toward her. Then she spoke, her voice calm but resonant. This morning I was escorted off a plane for daring to sit in the seat I paid for. I was told I made others uncomfortable. Hours later, I was asked to entrust this same airline with $900 million of partnership. My answer is no. Gasps erupted. Cameras flashed. The words shot through the press corps like electricity. I don't invest in arrogance. I don't sign contracts with prejudice. And I don't reward humiliation with loyalty. Effective immediately, Carter Brooks Global will not be moving forward with this agreement. The crowd exploded into questions, a wall of voices chasing her as she strode toward the exit. Maya glanced back, journalists already running to file breaking news alerts, phones buzzing with editors shouting in their ears. By the time Selena's car pulled away, the internet was already on fire. Clips of her statement spread across social media within minutes. Hashtags surged. Selena says no. First class while black. Cancel the airline. News anchors replayed her calm declaration on loop. Commentators called it a masterclass in power. Passengers across the country posted screenshots of their canceled tickets, vowing to boycott. Even rival airlines pounced, offering discounts with cheeky slogans like, "Fly where respect is included." Inside the boardroom she had left behind, chaos reigned. Executives shouted over one another, phones ringing off the hook. Halverson slammed his fist against the table. She can't do this. She just did, muttered one board member, staring at the news alerts lighting up her phone. Investors began calling within the hour. Stock prices dipped as headlines screamed across tickers. Selena Brooks walks away from $900 million deal after racist incident. Meanwhile, in the lounge of her hotel, Selena sat with Maya, sipping water as the world erupted around them. Maya's hands trembled as she scrolled through the headlines. Selena, you've become a symbol. People are calling this the most powerful corporate stand of the decade. Selena set down her glass, her tone even. This isn't about symbolism. It's about truth. They tried to humiliate me. Instead, they exposed themselves. Maya smiled faintly. And you exposed them. Selena's phone buzzed again, calls from senators, activists, CEOs of rival airlines. She ignored most, But one message from her legal team made her pause. Ready to discuss redirecting the contract to competitors. They'll bend over backward for you now. Selena allowed herself the smallest smile. Let's see how eager they are to respect what the others discarded. By evening, the airline's headquarters looked less like a corporation and more like a fortress under siege. Protesters gathered outside chanting Selena's name. Reporters filled the sidewalks, their lights glaring against the glass facade. Inside, chaos churned. Halverson sat at the head of the conference table, tie loosened, eyes bloodshot. "We have to fix this," he muttered, as if repeating it might make it true. "Get her back. Apologize again. Offer equity, stock options. Anything." His communications director shook her head, pale with exhaustion. "It's too late. She's already canceled. The media narrative is cemented. We're trending worldwide for all the wrong reasons. But desperation drives arrogance." That night, Halverson ordered one last move: send a private delegation to Selena's hotel suite with an offer so large it couldn't be ignored. When the knock came, Maya stiffened. Selena looked up from her laptop, where she had been reviewing competing offers already flooding her inbox. "Let them in," she said coolly. 3 executives entered, shoulders hunched but eyes still clinging to entitlement. One carried a thick folder, another clutched a bottle of wine, as though gifts could erase humiliation. "Brooks," the oldest began, "we've come to apologize personally. What happened this morning was disgraceful. We know we can't undo it, but we're prepared to offer amended terms, significant equity in the airline, an additional $100 million in guarantees, even naming rights for new projects. We beg you to reconsider." Selena rose slowly, crossing the room with unhurried grace. She accepted the folder, flipped it open, scanned the pages. The numbers were staggering, but her expression never shifted. Finally, she closed it, setting it on the table between them. "Do you think this is about money?" The executives froze. "This morning, your people decided a black woman in first class was suspicious enough to drag out. Not a problem to fix, an intruder to remove. You cannot buy back respect. You cannot purchase dignity, and you cannot negotiate trust after you've shattered it. On camera." Her words landed heavier than any contract. Maya sat back, lips pressed tight, watching the men shrink beneath her sister's steel. Selena leaned closer, her voice dropping to a tone both lethal and final. "You lost $900 million before you ever sat in this room. What you don't realize is you also lost me, and once you've lost me, you've lost the future." The men sputtered, but she was already moving. She opened the door herself, gesturing with a polite smile. "Gentlemen, good night." They shuffled out, defeated. Cameras caught their departure in the lobby, their bowed heads broadcast across networks as a symbol of corporate failure. Back inside, Maya exhaled in awe. You could have taken everything they offered. Why turn it down? Selena looked out the window at the city skyline, alive with lights. Because power isn't in what they're willing to give, it's in what I refuse to accept. The next morning, Selena woke to the sound of her phone buzzing non-stop on the nightstand. Maya answered before it could disturb her boss's rare sleep. "Yes. No, Miss Brooks isn't available. Yes. The cancellation stands. No, she won't make a statement beyond what she's already said." When Selena finally stirred, the sunlight streaming through the curtains, the world outside had already shifted. News anchors reported breathlessly on plummeting airline stocks. Headlines screamed, "Airline loses $900 million contract amid racism scandal." Passengers posted videos of themselves shredding loyalty cards, screenshots of canceled flights filling Twitter threads like confetti. Selena sat at the breakfast table with her tea, scrolling calmly. For once, the chaos didn't touch her, not in the way it used to. She wasn't the one scrambling to repair her image. They were. By mid-morning, the fallout turned catastrophic. A leaked memo revealed investors demanding an emergency board meeting. Shareholders threatened lawsuits, accusing leadership of negligence. Pilots' unions issued statements condemning the treatment of Selena and demanding accountability. CNN played the footage of her removal in a loop, paired with her quiet, devastating refusal to sign. Analysts called it a watershed moment, a corporate parable in real time. Meanwhile, at the airline's headquarters, the atmosphere was toxic. Executives barked at one another, PR teams scrambled with half-baked statements, and employees whispered in hallways about whether their jobs would survive the week. Halvorson himself looked gaunt, his voice breaking as he fielded angry calls from investors. "We've lost hundreds of millions in market value in a single day," one analyst snapped during the emergency board call. "All because you couldn't ensure basic human decency on your flights." Halvorson tried to defend himself, but the words fell flat. Even within his own walls, allies vanished. One by one, the board members distanced themselves, their emails leaking to the press. "We cannot support continued leadership under these circumstances." Back at her hotel, Maya scrolled through message after message. "Selena, this is unbelievable. People are organizing protests at major airports. They're calling for boycotts until heads roll." Selena sipped her tea. "Good. Let them feel the weight of what they tried to place on me." Still, Maya hesitated. "Do you regret it? Walking away?" Selena set her cup down, gaze steady. "No. You don't regret closing a door that was never meant to open to you with respect. I didn't lose $900 million. They lost me." As she spoke, her phone buzzed again, this time with offers. Competing airlines reached out, dangling sweeter deals, promising respect, promising partnership. Rivals saw the collapse as an opportunity, and they lined up eagerly at her door. Selena glanced at the flood of proposals and smiled faintly. "Interesting how quickly the world remembers your worth once you stop letting them discount it." Maya laughed softly. "Looks like you're about to start a bidding war." Selena leaned back in her chair, calm as always. "I don't chase wars. I let them come to me." The second day after the scandal broke was worse for the airline than the first. Stocks that had dipped yesterday now plunged. Trading halted twice as panicked investors scrambled to offload shares. News anchors described it as the steepest single-day decline in the company's history. Employees felt the shockwaves immediately. Gate agents whispered about canceled routes. Flight attendants checked their emails in dread, worried about looming layoffs. Even pilots, usually insulated from corporate drama, muttered in crew lounges about the collapse. At headquarters, Halvorson fought to keep control, but the cracks in his authority were visible. During the emergency board meeting, voices rose around the long mahogany table. "This isn't salvageable," one director snapped. "Our credibility is gone," another added. "You let your arrogance cost us the deal of the decade." Halvorson slammed his palm against the table. "It was one mistake." The room erupted with bitter laughter. "One mistake that went viral worldwide. One mistake that cost us nearly $1 billion in partnership and another $1 billion in valuation." The vote was swift and brutal. Effective immediately, Halvorson was removed as CEO. His name was already trending by the time he stepped out of the building. Flanked by security, his career in ruins. The press seized on it instantly. Airline ousts CEO after racism scandal. Commentators framed it as too little, too late. Social media mocked the fall from grace, memes spreading faster than any official statement. Meanwhile, Selena watched it all from her hotel suite, calm as ever. She read the headlines, then turned her attention to the growing stack of proposals from competitors. Each one promised more, better equity stakes, stronger guarantees, firmer commitments to diversity and respect. Maya skimmed through the latest offer, eyes wide. Selena, Delta just tripled their bid, and United says they'll build a whole new initiative in your name if you come to them. Selena gave a small, knowing smile. Now they compete for what was once taken for granted. Still, she didn't rush. Patience was part of her power. Let them scramble. Let them sweeten the pot. She wasn't here for desperation. She was here for dignity. Back at the disgraced airline, interim leadership scrambled to calm the chaos. They issued new statements, pledging reforms, hiring diversity consultants, announcing town halls. But every attempt at redemption rang hollow. The public didn't believe them. Passengers didn't trust them. Competitors laughed behind closed doors. Selena, however, wasn't laughing. She was focused. She met quietly with her legal team, reviewing the contracts, ensuring every potential partner understood respect wasn't negotiable. That evening, she finally allowed herself one moment of reflection. She stood by the window of her suite, looking out at the glittering skyline. Her reflection in the glass stared back, poised and unbowed. Maya joined her, voice soft. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had just stayed quiet? If you had signed anyway? Selena's answer was immediate. Then they would have won twice. They would have humiliated me and owned me. But now the humiliation belongs to them. The next morning's headlines confirmed it. The airline's reputation wasn't bruised, it was broken. By the third morning, the story had evolved beyond scandal. It was no longer just about an airline or a contract. It had become a symbol proof of what happens when arrogance collides with quiet authority. Selena stepped into a press conference arranged by her own team. The room was packed, journalists crammed shoulder to shoulder, cameras clicking like machine fire. She didn't arrive with security guards or a flashy entourage, just Maya carrying a slim folder of notes, though Selena never glanced at it once. She stood at the podium, waited for silence, and began. I didn't ask for this story. I didn't plan for it. But when it found me, I decided not to shrink, because too many times, people who look like me have been asked to shrink. Every word rang with clarity. She wasn't defensive. She wasn't angry. She was resolute. This was never about a seat on a plane. It was about whether I deserved to be treated as human in a space I paid to enter. The airline answered that question for me, and now I've answered theirs. The crowd leaned forward, pens poised, cameras flashing. I will not be signing with an airline that cannot recognize respect, but I will be partnering with those who can. In the coming weeks, Carter Brooks Global will announce a new alliance, one built not just on dollars but on dignity, because contracts are paper, but respect is the runway. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions, but Selena simply raised a hand in farewell and walked away. The moment became the clip of the day, replayed endlessly across networks. Behind the scenes, competitors celebrated. Their offers grew even more aggressive, each scrambling to prove themselves worthy. Some promised scholarships, others pledged to overhaul diversity policies. One airline offered to rename an entire fleet initiative after her foundation. Selena considered each with the same calm detachment she'd carried from the start. For her, the decision wasn't just about profit, it was about legacy. Who could she trust to carry her name into the future without staining it? Maya watched in awe. They're all fighting for you now. The powers completely shifted. Selena smiled faintly. Power was never theirs to begin with. I just reminded them. Meanwhile, the disgraced airline withered. Passengers boycotted, shareholders fled, leadership fractured. What had once been a symbol of prestige became a cautionary tale, and Selena didn't have to lift a single finger to push it further. Their downfall was self-inflicted. That night, Selena returned to her suite. She set aside contracts and headlines, and for the first time since the humiliation, allowed herself to exhale. She thought of the security guards who had paraded her down the aisle, of the businessman who had smirked, of the attendant who whispered she didn't belong. They had written her as small. Today she had rewritten herself as undeniable. Maya, curling up on the sofa with her laptop, looked over. So, what now? Selena walked to the window, looking at the skyline glittering against the night. Now we build something bigger, not just a deal, a statement that lasts. The scandal faded from headlines after a few weeks, but the ripples it created didn't. Selena knew that stories like hers rarely stayed in the spotlight for long. New controversies rose, old ones got replaced, but this wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a precedent. Emails poured into her office from strangers across the world. Some were executives who admitted privately that they had looked the other way at prejudice in their own companies and now felt compelled to act. Some were everyday travelers who said they finally felt seen. But the ones that touched Selena most weren't about business at all. They were from women who had faced the same quiet humiliations in their daily lives. A single mother wrote, Watching you walk away gave me the strength to walk away from my toxic boss. If you can refuse to be diminished with $900 million on the line, I can refuse too. The college student messaged, "Your story made me realize I don't have to apologize for being in rooms I've earned my place in." Selena read each one carefully. She replied when she could, and when she couldn't, she carried their words with her like armor. Meanwhile, her company thrived. Within 3 months, she signed a new alliance, this time with a partner who had proven their values matched their promises. The deal wasn't just larger financially, it was richer in substance. Scholarships were established under her foundation's name. Job pipelines opened for underrepresented groups in aviation. What had begun as an insult on a plane transformed into opportunities for thousands who would never know her personally but would benefit from her stand. Maya often marveled at it. "You turned humiliation into hope," she said one afternoon, sliding a fresh stack of proposals across Selena's desk. "Not just for you, for everyone who's ever been told to shrink." Selena smiled faintly. "That's the thing about storms. They can drown you or they can water the seeds you didn't know were there." Still, the scars lingered. Late at night, Selena sometimes replayed the moment in her mind. The attendant's dismissive glare, the captain's clipped tone, the businessman's smirk. The memory still cut deep, but instead of reopening wounds, it hardened her resolve. One evening, she received a letter from a high school girl in Atlanta. The handwriting was uneven, the ink smudged, but the words glowed with sincerity. "Brooks, when they said you didn't belong, and you still stood tall, I realized I don't have to be ashamed of who I am. Thank you for showing me I can sit in any seat." Selena folded the letter gently, placing it in the top drawer of her desk. It stayed there, alongside her most important documents. Not because it was part of her business, but because it was part of her soul. The airline that had humiliated her never recovered fully. Even years later, analysts pointed to the scandal as the turning point of its decline. But Selena didn't watch with vengeance. She watched with quiet certainty. Their downfall wasn't her victory, it was their lesson. Her victory was something else entirely, the knowledge that by refusing to accept disrespect, she had lit a torch others could carry forward. For all the headlines and contracts, the true weight of Selena's stand revealed itself in the quiet moments, the ones far from cameras and press releases. Her sister Camille visited one weekend, bringing her 2 young daughters. They ran through Selena's house, giggling, their tiny footsteps echoing against marble floors. At dinner, one of them, barely 8 years old, looked up from her plate. "Auntie, my teacher showed us your speech on the news. She said you're a hero." Selena paused, fork midair, emotions swelling. "I'm not a hero, baby. I just said no when someone tried to tell me I didn't belong." But Camille caught her eye, her expression soft but knowing. "That's exactly what makes you one." Later that night, when the girls were asleep, the sisters sat on the balcony overlooking the city. Camille sipped her wine, studying her sibling with pride. "Do you realize what you've done? Not just for your business, for us, for our family, for every girl who ever got told she was too loud, too black, too much." Selena exhaled, her voice quieter. "Sometimes I wonder if it was really strength or just exhaustion. I was tired of shrinking." "Strength is what happens when exhaustion refuses to bow," Camille replied gently. Those words stayed with Selena. Her fiancé, Jordan, had been her anchor throughout. When the scandal first broke, Jordan shielded her from the worst of the vitriol online, filtering emails and comments so Selena could focus. Now, as they planned their wedding, Jordan often reminded her to separate her worth from her wounds. One evening, Jordan cupped her face tenderly. "You don't have to keep fighting every night in your head. You've already won. Let yourself rest in that." Selena leaned into the comfort, realizing that love too was a victory. Not just contracts or headlines, love that saw her as human, not symbol. At work, her employees drew inspiration from her resilience. During a quarterly meeting, one young analyst stood nervously and said, "Ms. Brooks, I just want to thank you. I almost quit last year because I didn't think someone like me could make it here." Watching you, it changed that. Selena felt her throat tighten but kept her composure. Then stay, she told him. Stay and take up space. We need you. In those small affirmations, she found healing, not only for herself but for those around her. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights she still woke from dreams of that humiliating march down the airplane aisle. Yet now, instead of shame, the memory fueled her resolve. She would never let her nieces, her employees, or the young girl in Atlanta inherit a world where dignity was negotiable. Her therapist once asked her, "Selena, do you ever wish it hadn't happened?" Selena thought long before answering. No, because without the fire, I wouldn't have learned how to wield it. That was the paradox of her journey. Humiliation had been the spark, but healing was the flame that endured. On the anniversary of the scandal, Camille threw a small gathering. Friends, family, colleagues. They raised glasses, not to the downfall of an airline, but to the rise of a woman who had turned pain into purpose. Selena clinked her glass softly, smiling as she looked around at the circle of people who truly saw her. This, she said, is what matters. Not seats, not contracts, not titles. This. Months later, the scandal had become more than an isolated headline. It was a case study. Universities dissected it in ethics classes. Business schools cited it as a lesson in leadership and reputation. Even aviation conferences used her story as proof that arrogance in the air could crash companies on the ground. Selena didn't seek the spotlight, but it followed her. Invitations to speak flooded in. At first, she declined most, preferring to let her work speak for itself. But eventually, she chose carefully the places where her words might ignite something lasting. At one such event, a room full of young entrepreneurs listened in rapt attention. Selena stood at the podium, her voice steady. When they told me I didn't belong, I didn't argue. I simply refused to move. Power doesn't always roar. It often whispers no. The applause thundered, but it was the quiet nods, the young women clutching notebooks, the men reconsidering their blind spots that mattered most. Her foundation flourished too. The scholarships funded through her new partnership sent dozens of first-generation students into aviation, engineering, and business programs. Many wrote back with gratitude, sharing stories of doors that once seemed bolted shut now swinging wide. At home, Selena allowed herself to savor the simple victories. Breakfasts with Jordan, laughter with Camille's children, evenings spent reading instead of strategizing. Balance became her rebellion, proof that she was more than the sum of her battle. One night as she prepared for bed, Jordan asked softly, "Do you ever think about the seat, the one they dragged you from?" Selena smiled faintly, pulling back the covers. "Sometimes, but not as pain anymore. As a reminder of that no one can dictate where I belong, and that sometimes losing a seat means gaining a throne." The airline that had humiliated her limped along but never recovered its reputation. Competitors thrived in the vacuum it left behind. Selena didn't gloat, she didn't need to. Their collapse was simply proof of what happens when dignity is treated as expendable. As the years passed, her story settled into something larger than her. It became shorthand, a symbol parents used when teaching their children about self-respect, a reference in boardrooms when reminding colleagues of the cost of arrogance. On the 5th anniversary, a journalist asked her, "What do you hope people remember most about that day?" Selena thought for a moment before answering, "Not me, not even the deal. I hope they remember the choice, that you can always choose dignity over dollars, and when you do, the world bends, even if slowly, toward justice." Her words were clipped into documentaries, quoted in articles, printed on posters. But for Selena, the true legacy wasn't in the archives. It was in the quiet ripple she felt every time someone told her, "Because of you, I didn't shrink." The humiliation on that plane had once felt suffocating. Now it was a distant storm, remembered not for its destruction but for the seeds it watered.